Hi, I'm Steve Heap. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today in our first of a series of cloud platform summits, which are scheduled throughout the year. We'll be bringing you really relevant topics and use cases that are especially pertinent during this time. Today, we'll be talking about how we build a modern data warehouse, and we also have some amazing customer discussions ahead. Now, first I wanted to start with the context of today. To best serve our customers, we're focused and committed to delivering the right outcomes for them, for you. In every way, it's about supporting and enabling our customers in this unprecedented time of change. Today, our customers are reimagining and reinventing their businesses to lead them into a successful future. Now, when we look at areas that are top of mind, they include addressing the economic impact. How do we help save costs? How do we make sure we have a dynamic environment where we can only pay for what we use and maybe shut it off when we're not using it? Ensuring business continuity and business resiliency is obviously key. Engaging with employees and customers in a new way with the rapidly changing dynamics of most marketplaces, how do we stay on top of that? And part of that is being able to rapidly develop, deploy solutions to market, whether that's customer engagement, whether that's business practices, whether that's moving from a physical mode to a virtual mode like we're coming to you today, really helping to accelerate digital transformation. And finally, and importantly, and specific to the topic today, it's about informing decisions through predictive insights. And again, this will be the core topic for today. Now, next, one of the foundational innovations and core to our data management and data warehouse offering is the Oracle Autonomous Database. It is the world's only self-driving, self-securing, and self-repairing database. By self-driving, we mean it automatically provisions, configures, tunes, and scales. From a self-securing perspective, it automatically patches, encrypts, monitors, and remediates. So if it discovers a security action, it can automatically help remediate a specific potential breach. And then finally, from a self-repairing perspective, we offer the same level of SLAs and the lowest amount of downtime across any cloud provider. We realize that as you move to cloud, you cannot compromise. And so we've done just that and more with the Autonomous Database. So next, when you look at Autonomous Database, it comes in really two key features, or two services that are available. The first is the Autonomous Data Warehouse, which provides analytics in seconds. It allows our customers to deploy net new or move existing data marts, data lakes, and data warehouses to the cloud. And this will be our focus today. The second is Autonomous Transaction Processing, which is designed for high-performance transactional workload, and that will be the topic for an upcoming event. So now, one of the other key areas of innovation that we've done is our focus on choice of deployment, where we can offer unique access to cloud innovation wherever you choose. So whether that's in our public cloud, and that's Autonomous Database, or our full suite of data warehouse solutions, which we'll talk about, we can also take our entire public cloud and bring that to customer prem. So there are many reasons why customers can't move to cloud. If it's data sovereignty, data governance, some sort of regulations, latency issues, or what have you, highly sensitive data that can't leave the customer's premises, we can offer a solution. You can get an exact copy of Oracle's public cloud in your own data center. And finally, we also have a version, Autonomous Database on Exadata Cloud at Customer, where we can deliver just Autonomous Database capabilities to your data center. And this level of choice spans our entire data warehousing technology suite as well. And that's what I wanted to cover next. So when you look at modern data warehouse components, there's sort of 5 key areas. First is integration, where I need to be able to collect data from multiple sources. And those could be heterogeneous sources, those could be multi-cloud sources, that could be heterogeneous on-prem with cloud. The important piece is, how do I pull it all together in an easy mechanism? And then as we talk, you need the power of a database that's self-driving, self-securing, and self-repairing. You need to be able to support data lakes, support advanced machine learning-based analytics, and finally, data science that's also powered by machine learning. And Andy will go into much more detail in all of these areas. But ultimately, our differentiators lie in 5 key areas. It's a complete integrated solution that meets all your data warehouse needs. It's easy to start, it's easy to operate, and it's easy to analyze. We offer consistent high performance. You do not need to compromise performance while moving to cloud. And in fact, we can give you more secure environment for your data warehousing and analytics with a comprehensive multi-layer security approach. And finally, as we discussed, choice of deployment is key in terms of the benefits we provide to our customers. Now, with respect to those customers, we have many companies around the world of every size, representing every industry, who are making better decisions and delivering insights faster, leveraging our autonomous data warehouse technology, whether that's spanning the likes of Sky, Outfront, TaylorMade, CERN, Adventist Health, Vodafone, Unicommer, and others. And you're going to hear from 3 exciting customers today. So with that, the agenda for today, we will have a keynote about how we can modernize without compromise, building the modern data warehouse. And that's going to be led by Andy Mendelson, who's our Executive Vice President of Database Server Technology for Oracle. That'll be followed by customer spotlights, and finally a section on how we can get started and what those next steps would be. So with that, I would like to introduce Andy Mendelson. Andy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
It's great to be here, Steve. Okay, so let's get started here. So just to kick things off, I thought it'd be interesting to put up this quote from Eric Brynjolfsson of MIT. And it's very true. Everybody has realized over the last few years that most every industry, data is the most important asset of the organization. And customers are very focused on, how can I leverage this data for business value? And the problem is, customers for many years have been trying to do this with some success, but they've been running into a number of issues. The biggest issue I hear from customers is that the data is all over the place. They have data squirreled away in different line of business locations, central IT, in the cloud, in object stores. And for data analysts, one of the biggest problems is just finding the data that's relevant for what the business task they're up to. And then being able to analyze it is the next big step, of course. And because the data is scattered all over the place, data governance is really poor. Security is the weakest security of all these different data locations. So security is a big problem. And because the data is so fragmented, it's hard to analyze it. You need to try to consolidate it into a place where you can analyze that data through complex ETL mechanisms. It's not something data analysts can do on their own. They need a lot of help from lots of people in their organization to get to the data, to integrate it, to analyze it. And finally, there's been a lot of hype around machine learning. And I think most enterprises I talk to in other organizations are very frustrated that they haven't really been successful in deploying machine learning algorithms to get lots of value from their data. So at Oracle, we have been working with our customers for many years on premises to get value to their data via data marts and data warehouses. We have tens of thousands of customers who are deploying our database technologies, our data integration technologies as well. And what we want to talk about here today is to help both our existing customers who are already using our data warehouse technologies to modernize those infrastructures very, very easily using our cloud technologies. And also we'll welcome new customers who want to move from other platforms that have not been meeting their requirements very quickly to a much more modern, much more effective data warehouse platform. And to do that, we're going to talk about 4 separate areas. We're going to talk about, number 1, our complete integrated solution for the modern data warehouse. And then we'll go into a little more detail on how to implement that solution, how you start, how you operate, how you make the data secure, and finally, how you get value out of the data via analytics. Okay, so we have a complete integrated solution. Let's move on. So this is a general architectural picture of what a modern data warehouse platform needs to look like. Of course, on the left side, you've got all these data sources for the data your analysts want to get to, everything from packaged applications to Oracle and third-party databases. Data can be on premises, it can be in other clouds. You have batch processing to get data into your data warehouse via ETL. You have events using Kafka usually to move streaming data. And you have tools like Oracle Golden Gate to get change data capture from various data sources into your database. And finally, data can be in files also, it could be in object stores. And then you need a processing refinery that we call the data refinery to take that data and transform it into a form that can be easily analyzed. You move it into either object stores or persistent databases like Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse. You form data lakes using data and object stores. And then finally, you apply the analytics and machine learning models to get value out of that data. Some of the key components of the Oracle modern data warehouse are listed below here. Steve quickly went through them. I'll go through them in a little more detail, but they basically map to the picture we just saw. You know, the integration technologies are pulling the data out of the various data sources, and Oracle has very powerful data integration technologies that we've been using with our customers for many years, things like Oracle Data Integrator, Golden Gate for moving data from various sources into your data warehouse. We also, in our cloud, of course, have Kafka service now as well for doing that. And then the central point of our data warehouse platform, of course, is the Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse. Steve talked a little bit about that, and we'll go into that in more detail later in the presentation. But this is not only the platform for doing high performance parallel querying of your data in the data warehouse, it also can reach out transparently to data that's in the object stores that are forming the data lake if you're going in that direction as well. And finally, you get to the analytics side. You can use traditional analytic tools like Oracle Analytic Cloud or third-party tools like Tableau, Qlik, etc. And then machine learning platforms for doing predictive analytics on your data. The Autonomous Data Warehouse is a very unique technology that Oracle has brought to its cloud over the last couple of years. And the first bit of differentiation around Autonomous Data Warehouse is that it is a converged database. It's not just a simple traditional relational database that can look at structured data only. It can look at all your data. In a single data store, you can have both traditional relational structured data. You can have newer data types, semi-structured data types like JSON, XML. You can have graph data. You can have spatial data. You can have multidimensional data. And we have a powerful SQL engine that lets you do queries across all the different data, all from one place. Okay. No one else can do that. This converged engine can do any kind of data management activities relevant for your data warehouse. You can do powerful SQL analytics. You can do machine learning on the data right in the database itself. We have algorithms we've been working on for 15, 20 years that have all the popular modern machine learning algorithms. We have in-memory columnar technology for doing very powerful, very high performance analytics. We can do Internet of Things, streaming blockchain right in the database itself. You don't have to go to another specialty database engine to do blockchain or any of these other technologies. And finally, this powerful SQL engine not only works against querying data in the database itself, but it can reach out to data that's in files in the object store. So you can have single SQL queries that join data in files and object stores in various formats like Parfait, JSON, etc., with data that's in tables in the autonomous data warehouse itself. And finally, the big advantage here is, to get your job done in other clouds, you have to use lots of different engines if you want to do things like graph and spatial, blockchain, JSON document analytics. Here, everything is converged into one database, so you can have a very simple method to query and analyze all your data. And as Steve mentioned earlier, we have very unique deployment choices at Oracle. Of course, you can run Autonomous Data Warehouse and our solution for the modern data warehouse in our public cloud data centers, but you can also run the same technology in your data center, either by having essentially a private cloud of Autonomous Data Warehouse technologies in your data center itself, or you can put our entire Gen 2 public cloud infrastructure in a region dedicated just for your business. Okay, so that's sort of a high level of our complete solution. So let's get started now. So what do? It's to provision an autonomous data warehouse, it's really easy. You just go to your web browser, you do a few clicks where you say what's your best guess for how much compute and how much storage you're going to need, give us a password, and you press a button, and in a couple minutes you get the world's most powerful database technology completely provisioned for you. And then you go to the next screen and you can start loading data very simply via our online tools. And then as your needs get more complicated and you want to put together a more complex solution around Autonomous Data Warehouse, we offer you at the push of a button provisioning of much more complex infrastructures for dealing with departmental data warehouses or data marts, enterprise data warehouses that are integrated with data lakes on our object store, doing machine learning. And all these things can be provisioned at the push of a button, and we provide you with collateral to help understand how to use these technologies as well. So for those of you who are existing Oracle Data Warehouse customers on premises, and you're looking to modernize to a more modern cloud architecture, going to Oracle solution is the easiest by far way to go. You don't have to make any changes to your existing ETL scripts. Your BI tools all work. The same security policies can work. All you need to do is repoint the ETL to our data warehouse on the cloud. You take your existing analytic tools, you repoint them to Autonomous Data Warehouse, and you're done. That's it. Using any other kind of cloud technology to modernize your data warehouse is a much, much more complex project. And we have a quote here from a healthcare provider who looked at the two. It's just, simple repoint versus a complete re-architecture of everything you've done. Rewrite all your SQL queries, all your ETL scripts, everything. So for those of you who are existing Oracle Data Warehouse customers, it's sort of a no-brainer. Look to Oracle's modern data warehouse solution. Those of you who are existing Oracle Fusion application users using things like Fusion ERP, Fusion HCM, we offer you a complete solution out of the box for your data warehouse. No mess, no fuss, where we do, complete ETL for you from the data from your data sources in your Fusion applications. We do prepackaged analytics for you and dashboards, etc. And then you can grow from there. You can, once you get what we give you, you can say, hey, I need more data from other data sources, and you can easily use Autonomous Data Warehouse directly to add new data sources, to add more queries, etc. So it's a fully extensible and customizable platform. So again, if you're a customer in this space, it's the easiest way to go to create a modern data warehouse. So let's look at the third area. So once you've got your data warehouse provisioned, what do you have to do? Well, Autonomous Data Warehouse is a very unique technology out there in the industry. Not only do we automate the provisioning and configuration of your data warehouse like all the other cloud vendors do, we have unique tuning capabilities so that we will automatically do self-tuning. So your data analysts effectively are DBAs themselves. They don't really need to know anything about the tuning. They don't need another DBA to come in and help tune the system for them. We uniquely automate the security for them. There's constant security patching needed in this world, in this day and age, and we do that all for you online with no downtime. No one else can do that. We uniquely do elastic scaling, and I'll go into more detail on what I mean by that as well. And the key goal here is to automate everything around managing the database, so your analysts can basically do self-service. They don't need, the DBA anymore to provision and tune anything for them. And it frees up the DBAs and analysts and developers to do more innovation and create more value from the data, which is, of course, what the business really, really values. Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse has very unique elastic scaling capabilities. The other vendors talk about elasticity, but it doesn't apply to their databases. Competing platforms like Redshift and Snowflake have very traditional shape-based provisioning technologies where you choose from one of a different various shapes. So for example, you might get a shape that has 8 CPUs and so much storage and memory. And when that runs out, then you go to their next biggest shape, which might be 16 CPUs and more storage and memory. And when that runs out, you have to go to even a bigger shape. That might be 32 CPUs. With Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse, if you were wrong with your initial provisioning and let's say 8 CPUs wasn't quite enough, but 10 will do it, no problem. You just add a CPU. You go back to the console, all online, you add a CPU, and you're done. No problem, no mess, no fuss. No wasted CPUs that you incur when you go to these shape-based provisioning technologies. The other thing we do that's really unique is sometimes people have spiky workloads. Normally 16 CPUs is good enough, but occasionally there's this batch workload that runs at the end of the day or the end of the quarter that needs maybe 2x or even 3x the compute workload to get the job done in a timely fashion. With Autonomous Data Warehouse Auto Scale, you give us what you think is the baseline, say 8 CPUs are what you need, and then we will automatically scale up to 3 times that baseline. So if your baseline is 8, we'll scale up to 24 CPUs automatically for you on demand based on your workload. No mess, no fuss. You don't have to do anything yourself. And then we also let you, of course, manually, if you know your business is going to do some huge processing run at the end of the quarter that needs 40 CPUs, you can go in there on the console, just rev things up from 8 CPUs to 40, run temporarily with that, and then go back down when that workload is over. So the bottom line is elastic auto scaling drives down costs tremendously beyond what the other vendors are able to do. We mentioned earlier, we have automated a self-driving, self-tuning database. That's what Autonomous Database is all about. We automatically do the optimization for you by doing things like creating summary indexes for you. We automatically take advantage of things like in-memory columnar technology for you. We automatically parallelize all the queries, select the best plans, etc. All done via artificial intelligence algorithms of various sorts, including machine learning, to give you the best performance. And then the Autonomous Data Warehouse, for those of you already using Oracle technology on-prem, of course, uses the Exadata technology that you are probably using on-prem for your data warehouses. We transparently are using it under the covers and taking advantage of all the great performance innovations that are in Exadata, all transparently to you. So we have a customer here, Vodafone, that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. They're a global telco provider, and they were existing Oracle data warehouse customer on premises, and they're an example of a customer who was able to very easily modernize their data warehouse by moving to our cloud and autonomous data warehouse. And as part of that move, they got 6 times better performance. They're taking advantage of the auto scaling capability I mentioned earlier to automatically grow their warehouse and at very, very low cost. Another unique capability of autonomous data warehouse, of course, is that it's based on the Oracle database security technology. This is by far the most mature, powerful security for data management in the industry. And we automate everything that's possible to automate automatically. So for example, encryption, of course, all the data is automatically encrypted. You don't have to do anything, take advantage of that. We have a technology called Database Vault that makes sure that only you can see the data in your data warehouse. People from Oracle are completely, locked out from that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if there are some security updates that we need to apply for you, we do that all online with no downtime. Again, a very unique capability. And finally, we have a tool called DataSafe. And DataSafe is a tool that lets you do things that we can't do automatically. So for example, you have to manage the users of your data warehouse and the privileges you give them. And then we will do risk assessments. So we'll actually look at what access in the real actual data warehouse your users are doing. What queries are they performing? What tables are they looking at? And we make sure you haven't given them privileges to do more than they really need. We do automatic auditing of all the data for you and put it into a central repository and let you run analytics against the audit trails. And we also automatically will help you find out that you might have some sensitive data that you didn't know about, and you might want to mask that data when it goes into a test environment. And finally, all this powerful security that's in the data warehouse database can be extended transparently out to data that's in files in your object store. So you can apply all the same powerful Oracle database security mechanisms to data in your object store. Okay, finally, you've got all this data. Now you want to analyze it. Just as a free part of the service, we provide some visualization tools for you. And we provide a very powerful tool called Oracle Application Express, or Apex, that lets your data analysts who don't want to write a lot of code build simple applications really fast at really high productivity. So they, again, can be self-sufficient. You want your data analysts not to need anybody to provision the database for them, to tune it for them, and finally to write code for them. They can do everything themselves with Oracle's modern data warehouse platform. Oracle, of course, on our cloud provides a very powerful analytics tool called Oracle Analytics Cloud. For those of you who are using Oracle BIE on-premise, there's a very simple path from BIE to Oracle Analytics Cloud, which is basically a big superset of what you were using on premises. And it's a modern tool that does everything from traditional governed analytics to self-service, high powerful visualization of all your data using machine learning as well. And then, of course, Oracle knows that all of you used lots of different partners for your analytics, for your ETL, and we work with all those partners to certify that their technologies work well with our modern autonomous data warehouse platform. And finally, there are the data scientists out there. And for you, we have 2 choices. A lot of data scientists like taking data out of their databases or files and working on them in a separate repository using open source machine learning algorithms to build their data models. We have Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Data Science for doing that sort of thing. And for those of you who want more simplicity and you want to build machine learning algorithms on data that's right in the Autonomous Data Warehouse itself or in the object stores that are accessible from the Data Warehouse platform, we have machine learning algorithms that we've been working on for years that are built right into the Autonomous Data Warehouse itself. So without any mess or fuss, no ETL, you can build very powerful machine learning models that you can then deploy, at your pleasure where they're needed. And finally, both of these data science platforms support AutoML. So this is a very sophisticated technology that we've built in our research labs at Oracle that lets any data analyst become a sophisticated data scientist. You just show us your example data set, you show us the data and the various features you want us to use to do the predictive analytics. You show us the result for each row essentially in a table, that what you want the prediction to be. And we will then go through our catalog of machine learning algorithms and figure out which is the best algorithm for you. And if there's more than one possible, we'll give you a couple of choices, and then you can just pick out the machine learning model you want to use and go from there. Very, very easy. Every data analyst in your organization can now do what before only sophisticated data scientists could do. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Autonomous Data Warehouse has various unique technologies that deliver very high performance using very few compute CPUs, and therefore deliver very low cost, because on the cloud, you just pay for what you use. And so when you compare Autonomous Data Warehouse versus AWS Redshift or versus Snowflake, you will see that we use far less compute to get the work done and therefore save you money. Plus, I mentioned earlier, we have our fully elastic auto-scaling capability. AWS and Snowflake are first generation shape-based provisioning technologies. They require you to pay for lots of unused CPU. We have auto scaling, so you pay for just the CPUs you need, and we will automatically scale up just for a few hours or a few minutes to get your job done. And no one else can do that. They require you to move to these bigger and bigger shapes with lots of wasted compute. Just as a final thing, I talked a lot about how we have lots of existing data warehouse customers who can easily modernize their infrastructure by moving to our Autonomous Data Warehouse and other modern cloud data warehouse platform technologies. But we also have customers moving from other places. So for example, here we have Ripley, who's a leading retailer, credit card bank. They were using AWS Redshift. They moved to Autonomous Data Warehouse. They lowered their cost 25% by using the techniques we mentioned earlier. They're getting better performance on fewer compute and having a great time using Oracle's modern data warehouse platform. And just to summarize, what are the unique differentiators of Oracle's modern data warehouse cloud platform versus what you get on AWS and from Snowflake? Number one, we are using a converged database technology. All your data types, from structure to graph to JSON to XML, can be analyzed with a powerful converged SQL engine in one place. You don't have to fragment your data across lots of different specialty databases to be able to analyze your data. We have the world's most powerful data management security that lets you secure your data both in the Oracle database itself, but also it can be extended out to data that's in files in your object store. We have, of course, a self-driving database, very unique self-tuning platform. No one else has that. We talked a lot about our truly elastic auto-scaling capability. No one else has that. And finally, Oracle uniquely lets you deploy our cloud technologies both in our public cloud and in your data center as well. Amazon, Snowflake can't do that either. So just to summarize, we talked about Oracle's modern data warehouse platform. gives you a complete integrated solution for modernizing your data warehouse technologies. And we went through the different steps of how easy it is to start, how easy it is to load data, operate and secure your modern data warehouse. And then we talked a lot about our powerful analytics and machine learning technologies, both from Oracle and from third parties that integrate with our platform. And with that, let's move back to Steve DeHeeb.
Great, Andy. Thank you so much. What a excellent overview, great insight, and what a great way to kick off this series of virtual events. Thank you so much. Now I think we get to my favorite part. I'm getting my popcorn ready. It's time for our customer spotlight. We will showcase different use cases spanning departmental, enterprise, and data lake use cases. So please welcome our customers.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Hey, everybody. Scott Wiesner, Senior Manager, Product Management. So look, throughout our history, our purpose has always been to help our customers with better data management solutions. Because whether it's optimizing ad sales, improving healthcare, or unlocking nature's secrets, your ability to collect, analyze, and secure data is your key competitive advantage. So in this segment, we're really honored, and I'm actually really excited too, to have 3 customers who are leveraging our platform to contain costs, power innovation, and then of course mitigate risk. That's a big one, right? So this is a live event, but our first guest was actually very successful. So he was actually able to go on vacation this week. We previously recorded my interview with Derek Hayden a couple weeks ago. Let's play that video. We are joined by Derek Hayden, who's the Senior Vice President of Data Strategy and Analytics for Outfront Media. Derek, welcome to the summit.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us today. So can you tell us a little bit about Outfront Media?
Sure. Outfront Media is one of the largest out-of-home media advertising companies in North America. We have over 500,000 advertising displays in the US and Canada. And we deliver brand impressions on behalf of our advertisers to their customers through a combination of technology, location, and creative services. So we think we have a really nice asset portfolio, and hopefully when you guys are out and about, whether it be driving around or on transit, you'll see some of our assets in front of you.
I've definitely seen the billboards, love to see the logo, and again, thanks for coming on the event here today. So let's go back in time a little bit. What was the situation about 6 years ago before you had your current system in place? Kind of go back in time a little bit, tell us kind of what was going on at that time.
Sure. About 6 years ago, we were a division of CBS Corporation. So, and we were certainly not one of the larger ones. And so our charge was to make our revenue numbers and keep our expenses down. And that was, essentially what we focused on. We were spun off as our own company. And all of a sudden, we had a C-level suite that was asking real business questions. We had investors that we had to give answers to. And a lot of our information, even though we were fortunate to bring all that data with us. I think that was very fortunate as a new company to have 15, 20 years worth of data at our disposal. Everything was very siloed, and it was really hard to get consistent answers. The IT group at the time was constantly running around trying to give answers. We weren't cross-functional at that time. And then you'd have kind of savvy users out in the sales and finance teams who would, get data from different sources and aggregate it, and it became gospel, so to speak. But people weren't speaking the same language necessarily. They weren't looking at things the same way, and it became problematic to say that the answer that people were giving was a governed answer that we all trusted.
So putting that in the context a little bit, so spin off, I think you recognize at that point that there was a bunch of siloed information. People were kind of left to their own devices. There was no governed access. no consistency, I would imagine. What was the kind of the mindset there? Because I think you stepped in. I don't want to cover that a little bit. Where again, you realized right away that this was not sustainable, right? And what happened next?
Yeah, we were in a meeting with the CFO and the sales strategy group, and we were kind of kicking around, how we could get information to people faster. The sales strategy group had started creating an access database, and they were spending a lot of their time wrangling data, manipulating data, and then distributing data. So, the CFO kind of said, we need you guys to work on strategy, not data. And we didn't have when we left CBS, there was no analytics practice or platform for us. So he kind of said, we need something like a warehouse or something, some sort of data warehouse. That was his technical term. And so, I kind of raised my hand and said, I'd be willing to take that on. I was kind of on the finance and real estate application side. We were in Oracle Technologies, my group. And I said, I'll take that on, because I just felt like as a new company, our services as an EBS support group could be easily outsourced. So I kind of saw it as an opportunity to maybe make us more attractive long-term as resources.
So the CFO recognized that, okay, I know the power of data, I know the value of that data, but we have the salespeople trying to wrangle that data. That's not what we hired them to do. We need them to be selling. So you volunteered, good for you.
Yes.
You waded right into this and said, I can actually set up a data warehouse. I got some background here. So that's kind of the context, I think, where you started. And I would imagine our other customers have a similar situation, even whether it's a spinoff or a line of business, or we all face the same things where we want to be data providers to the business and let them do what they need to do versus having them to do everything. So kind of what happened next after there was a realization from your CFO of all places that you needed the data warehouse?
Well, ironically, when we were spun off, we actually didn't have a data center to go along with us. So he said, we want this warehouse and like to do something in, analytics, and we want to do it quickly. So we evaluated a bunch of solutions, and especially at the time, Oracle had cloud database and BI cloud service. It seemed, and we had Oracle technology expertise as well. So it seemed like the best course to success was to adopt a cloud-first platform, Oracle technologies, and kind of address the sales group's needs over a period of time. So we kind of laid out a plan of about a 3-year plan to onboard 700 and something users for the sales organization, and everyone agreed on it. And then we kind of got into it, and we got the 5 or 6 key measurements from the sales group that they wanted to be distributed. And not only within 3 months, not only did we have those, but we had another 10, and we had about 250 users on right away. And then the finance and real estate teams were kind of hearing about this and started to, peer over the shoulder, like, what are you guys doing over there? Hey, we want in on that. So we fast-tracked a lot of this stuff. And in the first year, we had everybody up, that we had planned on for 3 years, and we were covering 3 lines of business, so to speak.
Wow.
From my group's support standpoint.
Wow, nice job. I'm glad you volunteered for that role. So real quick, so I think there's a critical part, and we'll come back to kind of lessons learned towards the end here, but you started with the sales team, which was good, and you built that plan. So it sounds like the first thing was, let's build a data warehouse. Let's provide dashboards for the sales team. There's a little bit of disruption there, looking at right around 2017. What happened there?
Yeah, we were in that 2016 time period, we were feeling really good about ourselves and delivering as quickly as we could possibly get requests in. And, we were adding value, and I feel like we were streamlining the reporting side and really started to introduce visualization and analytics as a concept into the organization. As a technology team, we kind of got caught up in all the accolades, and things kind of went haywire. So we started running into issues with space for our data. We had to, with cloud database, we had to pick a economical CPU range to stay in. And so we kind of got ourselves turned around. So we just started prioritizing what do we really need to do. We had to pump the brakes in 2017 and kind of completely rewrite our warehouse. So, that helped us address some space issues. It helped us address performance, but it took about 6 months out of our production of new content, so to speak, and really, kind of sidelined us for that period of time. But then we kind of got right back into it. We did an analytics assessment. We wanted to make sure we were on the right track, and we didn't want to get into that space again. And that's about when ADW kind of materialized in the Oracle portfolio. So we started poking around with ADW, and it addressed a lot of the things that we were struggling with. We did a universal credit conversion to kick off 2019, which kind of opened up the doors to all sorts of new tools. It allowed us to address some third-party data that we'd never really brought into our warehouse environment. And we brought that in through ADW, and that's a whole nother interesting story somewhere, that we were able to turn around the media spend analytics in like 3 days, literally. At least get it back out into the field in like 3 days. And then DB came out on OAC and ODI and Spatial Studio. So we've really kind of opened up our world now by kind of sticking to the Oracle Cloud platform.
Wow, thank you. So interesting. So recognized the need for kind of centralized data management, if you will. And then you realized, okay, we're probably better off in the cloud, started doing things manually. And then here's this autonomous thing, which seems to be the right thing to do. So let's actually double click into your architecture a little bit. Walk us through kind of what the data sources are. I'm sure our audience wants to know kind of what does this look like, maybe at a high level, what your data flow looks like, and kind of go from a service level description here.
Yeah, so it's probably not that unfamiliar to people. We have what we consider on-premise data sources, which would be Oracle EBS. We have a DB2. I mean, they're actually in separate hosted data centers. They're actually not anywhere near each other. We have our infamous Access database that is still somewhat alive. I'm trying to kill that off, but and of course Excel always creeps in as a source, or probably more recently Smartsheet, my new favorite thing. And then we have some cloud sources. We have Oracle Cloud sources. We've got Booster is a media-centric CRM tool that we use. We have some IBM Cloud kicking out there, and then this third-party media spend that we consume right now is another huge source. So like our main sources of data there on the left, and it's kind of a hybrid, it's kind of coming from every direction.
Yeah.
So we as a technology team, we kind of wrangle it, we use ODI, little PL SQL tricks, things like that. But we're really looking to ODI as our, I call it a data orchestration methodology. And then our warehouse is, ADW, and there's tools off of that, which we actually use Apex and Spatial Studio. And so that's been great. And then the visualization side is OAC.
Perfect. Not uncommon. I'm sure a lot of folks in our audience have a lot of different data sources and probably want to add even more data sources. There's just a hunger for all the different data from various sources. So tell us a little bit about why you chose Oracle for this data warehouse. You're basically implementing something new in the cloud, and what do we give to you?
Yeah, I mean, we were in an interesting position because we didn't have any preconceived notions of what a warehouse or an analytics delivery should be. We went through a very long, practical evaluation of technologies at the time. And again, we actually had a partner come and they recommended Microsoft on our behalf. And I said, if I'm going to own this, I don't believe that that's where we should be. We had Oracle technologists. We've had a long relationship with Oracle and Oracle technologies. My team was ready to take the challenge. They were ready to move into a different role in the company. And, we were able to kind of repurpose existing resources into the analytics space. So it really didn't cost anything headcount-wise to take this on in the Oracle platform. So it kind of was a no-brainer there. The cloud was perfect for us. It let us kind of get everything going quickly. And I think the time to delivery from when we, kind of spun things up to actually started delivering was so quick that, there was no chance for second guessing. There was, we saw immediate success and immediate value. And really, we never looked back. Since that time, it's been 6 years, and the portfolio that Oracle has put out in the cloud analytics space is really impressive, and I've seen it grow. There's been changes to how you get to it, but right now, it's at a really powerful cloud offering, and we do everything through it.
Perfect. Yeah, first of all, thank you for sticking with us. I do believe we have a lot to offer, and you're proof of that. And we'll hear later from some other folks as well. Tell us a little bit about what your experience, let's talk about just the data warehouse itself, as you moved from kind of doing things manually to leveraging the power of autonomous data warehouse. Tell us a little about your experience there.
Yeah, so we were, building the warehouse out in cloud database, and that was great. Obviously, it's foundational to our success story. Is how quickly we created the warehouse.
Yeah, 3 years instead of 3 years, 15 months. That's pretty good market.
Pretty amazing. But again, we didn't have a data center. We didn't bring any DBAs with us when we were spun off. So we had true technologists, and I really wanted them concentrating on data. And so in order for us to keep this going, not only do we have the data warehouse rewrite, but we had to worry about space issues, backups, patching, security. We were limited or hampered, I would say, by we weren't able to scale up and back on the CPU side. We had to commit if we wanted to move to that next level. So, we really, those first 3 years, we were feeling our way around, and we had such great success. The last part of it was trying to get my technology team to focus on data and partnering with the business, because that was the most powerful part of our offering, was being a partner. And I didn't need them to spend 30% of their time dealing with the infrastructure, even on cloud, even on just the technology piece. So that's really what the push, obviously, for ADW. We get self-patching, self-repair. It scales. We don't have any issues with storage. So it kind of just allows us to have that much more time back on the technology side, and again, just keep producing. And when we partner with our customers, and I say this, now we're not even an IT group. We're a technology services group. So we really, try and partner. And I just tell them, don't think there's any limitation. Just tell me what you need, and we'll figure out, they don't necessarily want to care about the back. And this infrastructure here allows us to say, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm not sure you've ever had to say no to them for anything.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, and you definitely, as IT professionals, we always want to be partners with the business and delivering what they want, yesterday, instead of them trying to figure it out on their own, which is what happened initially. One of the things for, certainly a sales team is, they need to get out sales quotes like immediately. And some of these things can be really complex. So How does the platform, and particularly the data warehouse, how does that serve that need? Can you give us an example of, kind of like the query performance, basically?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. There's one, actually, the finance team is really interested in the sales directors in the revenue forecasting. Back in the timeline slide, part of that data warehouse rewrite that we took was to really facilitate some of these revenue forecasting queries. They were complicated. And so when we first got to ADW, we said, well, let's see what this thing can do. Like we took the data, we moved it over. We didn't pull any levers or anything. We just started running queries. And so the first time we ran our revenue forecasting query, it took about 6 minutes. And I sat there and I was like, oh boy, this is not good. But the second time we ran it, it took 2 seconds.
Wow.
And then the more we ran, the better the performance. And to be fair, the funny, I'm not a coder or not a technologist per se. My team would say, oh, we can make it faster than that. It's sub 2, closer to 1. Like we can make it faster. And I said, yeah, but we made it faster in about 2 minutes. Like we had to stop and take 6 months to do it. This is probably the right way to go. I mean, most users aren't going to notice a difference between a highly tuned query and one that was basically auto-tuned.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was great. And then the corollary to that is this media spend data that we were bringing in from the third party was something that we weren't really familiar with. So not only was it a lot of data for us to ingest, but we didn't want to spend a lot of time modeling and indexing and all that. So we just would let it run. And we kind of let people hit against ADW just as they normally would against the data. And so we really haven't really touched that data model. We just let ADW do the work for us.
Wow, that's amazing. So 6 minutes, 2 seconds, I'd imagine it's getting faster. And you're right, business doesn't care. They just want it as fast as they can.
Right.
Whether it's auto-tuned or manual, but look, time to market's everything, and so to speak. They can do more with the short amount of time. That's a great story. Appreciate that. Yeah. So let's kind of get out of the architecture a little bit and tell us, a little bit more about, some of the outcomes you have, where you're going, and I'm sure the audience wants to hear a little about, hey, along this journey, what did you learn, and how do we help our peers to go even faster? Understanding the mistakes that are deviations from your path that you had before. So let's start with a little bit of that about the outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on them when we talked, but just to kind of reiterate, we have a data warehouse without a data center. Oracle is our data center, for lack of a better word. So it really allows us to focus. We've consolidated our cross-platform reporting into one place. It's governed from the standpoint of, people go there and it's trusted. If it doesn't come from there, there's definitely at this point, some questioning. C-level has embraced, the data and the visualization. I think I mentioned to you, we were chatting at one point that, I can tell when our CRO is up early or if he happens to be over in London because, something doesn't look right to him. It's right to my phone, nice, bright and early. So they've definitely taken it, adopted that. It's also allowed us to kind of create a common vocabulary. I mean, one of the things about the siloed reporting was, we still had systems calling things a sales phase versus a panel for the real estate group. And so we kind of all come together and there are things that now are just common. And we brought that vocabulary together. I think we always had measurements kind of out in the company, but this allowed everyone to really focus on what they want to measure. And the KPIs were, everyone knew what they were and they knew where they could find the measurements. And I think that was powerful because sometimes I think we would just lose sight of what was expected. And I think that was really helpful. There's something that our sales team likes to call visual performance management. And of course, the data drives that. But the visualization tool is obviously the visual part of that. But it drives some competition helps look for trends and outliers that they may not have seen in a spreadsheet before. So I think that's been really powerful. We've been able to introduce third-party sources into the warehouse to help do things that in the past were really manual and maybe quarterly or every once in a while someone will get it. One of the things here that they're working toward on the media spend side is understanding how we can identify people who are spending media dollars but not necessarily in the out-of-home industry, and can we go look at peers of certain companies that are more favorable to us and create a story as a media partner and say, hey, we see you spending in these areas. Can we show you that, newspapers and magazines, the circulation is way down. Maybe you should move some of your dollars. You're not going to change your marketing budget, but your dollars can move into the out-of-home, and we feel like we're more effective in that space. So really just have those conversations as a media partner, and we can do that with the ADW now. And then,
better to provide data to the business than trying to wrangle that data and
yeah,
a common language. So let's just spend a couple minutes on lessons learned, if you would. How can we help the audience kind of on their journey?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, the big leap of faith that we took was, let's go with Oracle. Let's utilize existing expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was really, that was a good decision on our part to say, look, we know we can deliver in this environment with this technology staff that we have. Mm-hmm. So it allowed us to, rather than focusing on the infrastructure, focused on the data, right? So we can bring it, get it in there, get it modeled, and then use visualization. And that really helped us become a business partner. So before we were kind of the standoffish IT group that, that just waited for bad things to happen, or some fire drill request from a C-level. We need data, and we would all run around for hours upon hours and spend weekends wrangling things. So by partnering, we don't get surprised by that as often as we used to. Not to say we don't ever get surprised by a request, but I think what it has done is, the things that they need to know, and we've put it out there in a way that they can consume it relatively easily. And what it's sparking is other questions outside of probably the normal, just, oh, I need this or I need that. We're able to partner, and I think by having the quick wins up front,
yep.
Not trying to deliver an entire platform at once,
Mm-hmm.
We were able to kind of organically ensure adoption, and the sales organization adopted very quickly. And then the finance and real estate organizations came on, and they were like, hey, we want that. We see what you're doing. And we were able to really come up with some creative ways to not only, give them some data that they weren't getting before, but we actually reduced their reliance on some kind of third party or internal applications that they were using. And we've shifted all that to the warehouse. Because the cloud's scalable and economical, we can try stuff. My team, I tell them, we don't have to be perfect. You have to, I want them to go try, fail or succeed. And I think, we've, especially in the last 2 years, with the opening up of the tool sets, we've done a lot of trying, failing. Something doesn't work, we can abandon it in the cloud and we can start over. And I don't feel like I've burned CPUs or I bought a machine I didn't need, and that type of thing. And,
yeah.
And then,
look, thank you for working with us. Sounds like the partnership is really having an impact where you can focus on data and a data provider and partnering with the business. We're helping you along with that journey. Again, thanks for being with us for a few minutes on your story and lessons learned. And we're looking forward to greater things with Outfront Media in the future. Thanks,
I appreciate it, Scott. Look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks. All right, thanks, Derek. Sorry to cut you off there, but let's step it up a little bit. I'd like to introduce Kim Jackson, who is the Vice President of Business Analytics for Adventist Health. Kim, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get right to it. Can you tell us a little bit about Adventist Health and what's going on there?
Sure, absolutely. Adventist Health is a faith-based nonprofit integrated health system. We're in California, Oregon, and Hawaii with over 80 communities. We practice in the Seventh-day Adventist faith. We service rural and urban communities, primarily rural. Our mission is living God's love by inspiring health, wholeness, and hope. 21 hospitals, medical groups, and health plans with 28,000 employees and 1,200 physicians.
Thanks for that. I imagine this is really important given the current environment. Now, this is about data, and being data-driven. So walk us through real quick your values on being data-driven.
Absolutely. As a faith-based organization, our mission and values are extremely important to us. And we live by these 3B statements. Two in particular that reach out to me within the data world is to be a mission owner. You'll see through the rest of my organization that we had outsourced most of our data strategy and the work that we do. But to be a mission owner, you need to understand your strategy. You need to drive your organization. So I take that to heart, and we wanted to have a new direction for our organization. And also, we needed to treat data as an intellectual property. And to do so, we needed to, again, own our data, use it appropriately, and help drive our organization forward.
Perfect. Yeah. Outside of your people, your intellectual property, data, as Andy pointed out in the beginning, is probably your most important asset. So we're about, a little over halfway through 2020. So can you take us like a minute through going through your priorities? And I'd like you to touch on data literacy, if you would. You wrote an article recently in a CIO periodical about data literacy and how that's one of your priorities. So walk us through that just for a minute.
Absolutely. So I love to share what we're doing. I know when I attend these events, I want to see what my peers are doing, in particular in these areas. So I talked about how we outsource. So one of our first goal was to insource our analytic team and our leadership. I was one of those decisions. So I've just come on my anniversary. I've been with the organization for about a year. To do that also, we had to groom our talent and increase the work that we do so that we were less reactive and more proactive so that we could help our organization. Data literacy is a core fundamental to that, fundamental strategy towards that. So instead of us just being technical people, we really need to understand our data domains. In the healthcare space, understanding the difference between charges and billings and our payers and what clinical documentation and pharmacy and laboratory. Healthcare data is super, super wide with all the traditional business functions, as well as a really large clinical longitudinal record from the outpatient, the clinic. It can go on and on and on. So you can imagine how our clinicians at the bedside, our financial FOs don't have time to learn all of these data structures that they need us to be experts so that we can give them the insights instead of them learning a super complicated data model. And data literacy and having our talent and our employees understand that so that they can deliver that service is essential for us to be successful.
Sensing a theme of partnering with the business, not just being IT people. So rewind a little bit. You said you've been with Adventist Health for about a year. And what was the situation? We can go to the next slide. And what was the situation? Similar to what kind of Derek was talking about out front. What was going on when you dropped in?
Absolutely. So not only had we outsourced our analytical leadership, but we had outsourced our platforms. Mm-hmm. Our platform was end of life, and we were with our vendor, our EMR, electronic medical record vendor. It happens to be Cerner. They supported, and we had our data warehouse in their environment. So it was end of life. It hadn't had patches in 2 years. We weren't able to own our data model. We had lots of problems with stability. So we really needed to have a modern environment. Our new strategy, our 2030 strategy, isn't dependent on us being able to have technology to support, a data model to support. As hospitals go from just being hospital-based to community-based, we needed more data sets and not just hospital-centric. We needed to understand the community as well. So we needed a broader data sets and tools to help us do that. We had multiple data platforms, multiple EDWs, and we aren't able to connect all of that data together to actually make it a differential in the work that we do. Rising costs. The cost that we were paying for this end of life EDW was very, very large, and we needed to reduce that. In fact, we were able to reduce it by 60% by moving. So I'm real proud of that. And we were also dependent on our vendors' roadmap. They had competing databases. They wanted us to use their tools, and they made decisions that wouldn't allow us to do what we were interested in doing in their same environment. So we were really lock and key to their roadmap, their desires, not our desires as an organization.
So multiple data sources, rising cost, you were kind of relying on a single vendor there that was kind of owning, you wanted to own your own destiny. Let's go to the next slide. You probably had some goals when you dropped in on how to improve that, get to those 2020 objectives. You can walk us through that a little bit?
Absolutely. We wanted a single source of truth. So we wanted our finance, our clinical, our operational data in one spot so that we can see them all together. We needed faster, more stable processing. I told you our environment went down a lot. It needed to be up. We needed to be a tier 1 application so that our users could use their data to make business decisions. We needed to move to advanced analytics. We weren't able to because we didn't have real-time data. You can't make clinical decisions 3 days later. You really need to be at point of care to impact in the work that we do, which comments on this retrospective to concurrent analysis. And we need better security. We, HIPAA and the consequences for breaches are really strict. I know they are in other businesses as well, but that's foremost in the work that we do. And we need to increase our data quality, of course. The more data sources you have, we have hundreds of people touching every record. There's so many clinicians, and we need to make sure that we can wrangle that data and to use it appropriately to make business decisions.
Sure. So got some great objectives, lots to do, lots of goals. Why Oracle? I think everybody wants
to. In many ways, we're an Oracle shop. We use our finance, our HR applications, many of our databases are Oracle. So it seemed like a natural fit to make sure. Also, our third-party tools, they're also partners with y'all. So we really felt like platform, our data was already using these tools and formats. So it would be a natural combination for us to work with. Also, data security. I talked about how that's so important, and everybody knows about all the HIPAA rules that are required. Y'all were one of the very few who were willing even to share that risk. So y'all are a partner in this endeavor, and that was really important to you. If we're going to partner with you, share our all data with you, then we need to make sure that you take it as seriously as we do. And I talked about the cost model. It's more flexible. So y'all have a catalog. We can use what we want when. We get charged for the use that we have. And that's nice in case we decide we want to pivot and go in a different direction.
So putting you on the spot a little bit, you know, other vendors go, I'm not ready for you yet. Other vendors claim data security. So was there something unique about what Oracle's doing, or that the other vendors weren't providing that kind of put us in that leading position?
So, for example, Amazon, Microsoft were unwilling to sign our BA, which would share the risk. So that what that means is in the healthcare space, for example, I don't know how many people who aren't in this space. If you have a breach, you're charged $500 a day for every patient that you breach. So if a switch is changed and we have a breach of our entire population, that could be millions and millions of records, which is a really lengthy time and hours isn't enough for that type of risk. We wanted to make sure that our partner understand how important that was, and we're going to share that legal risk with us.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the partnership. We're certainly happy to partner.
You got to lock that key, right? Because I don't want to pay that bill. I don't think
That's right. It's a shared risk.
As well as keeping our patients safe, which is
go ahead.
The number one thing.
Yeah, look, we're happy to partner on the technology side. More than happy to partner on the security. We really feel like we're a business partner at this stage. So, got it. Thank you again for being a customer. Let's talk a little bit about implementation.
Sure, absolutely. And I think this is in contrast to your last conversation, which was a while ago. So people who might be wanting to switch, how long did it really take us and what did we do? And of course, you can never just do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
These timelines, it's important. It took us about We had 2 months to lift and shift, meaning create an environment in the new space and move it. We also had new content. So Adventist Health is on an acquisition journey. So we're buying additional hospitals and medical groups. And so we had a big acquisition that we wanted to bring on. So we did that work. We also did additional AP integration. We had a really large EMR, that's Enterprise Medical Record, upgrade. In fact, they changed their ID structure. So you can imagine if you change your ID structure, the patient ID structure, how that would really affect. We went from 2 different ID structures into one, and we had to manage both of them at the same time as we transitioned. I told you we had 21 hospitals as we move every hospital from this 2 ID structure to 1 ID structure. I know that's super in the weeds, but that's just not moving. That's I have to move and maintain both at the same time. So that made it complicated. And our vendor didn't have audit and reconciliation. I want to make sure that my source and target, they match, and I reconcile for better data quality. So we added that functionality. That took about 5 months. Meanwhile, I told you I wanted to insource my department. So we're insourcing accountability and ensuring that we have the proper skill set to support our program in the long term.
Fantastic. So I did this with the other guys. So let's take a look at your architecture, if you will. So where do we stand today? And not uncommon to have other logos in there. And in fact, we embrace that. So you can walk us through your architecture as it stands today.
Absolutely. What you might notice here is a lot of holes, right? And I think that's okay. So we are in the beginning of our journey, and I think that's important. I told you that I wanted to own my own destiny, and some of these are a result of the fact that we had outsourced that strategy. And so we want to make sure that as we move forward and own our strategy, we fill these holes. But it's just as important to know what you have is what you don't have as well, in my opinion. So you see we have these operational systems. We are looking to add more streaming data for that community data that I spoke about. We have moved to the autonomous data warehouse that we spoke about. Our electronic medical record happens to be Cerner. We use Informatica and R in various different ways to be agile, and as we've tried new things. For data science, we've used a little bit of Python. We have a very young MDM reference data, and we've used one of your tools, Apex, for a little bit of that, and Salesforce, and we're working to grow that to improve our data quality. We have Elation is in our roadmap this year to implement it. And we have some self-service tools, Tableau, Business Objects. I want to expand that. And we use OAC a little bit to do that. And the goal is part of this move to expand utilization in that space as well.
We missed the OAC logo in there. That's okay. So I've got good news for you, Kim.
I couldn't find it. It just looked like Oracle. So
That's right.
If you have one, I'll add it to my slide.
I've got good news for you. In a minute, we're going to talk to Manuel, and he actually has the story on streaming and data lakes. So we're going to help you in a minute here, and certainly happy to partner with everybody else. I think you saw some value in, hey, look, we've got the breadth and complete integrated story. Absolutely. I think you would agree with that. However, the reality of this situation is sometimes you got to move and improve and lift and shift existing things to take quicker advantage. And I think we see that with some of these. So let's move right along into some of the outcomes. I think everybody's curious to know what actually happened. What'd you get out of this?
Sure. Here's some examples. I'm a real data-driven person. I am the data gal, right? So here's some examples in particular. So we use Tableau a lot. So here's some examples. We started in our prior environment of some of our larger sessions, by the way. These are large ones. We started at 23 minutes, and we were able to reduce it down to 10-minute jobs. And again, in a multi-session environment, we were able to cut it a third as well. So you can see that's a substantial amount. One of the largest ones, we went from 41 minutes to 4 minutes. So those are pretty strong reductions in the time it took to run our jobs.
Yeah, look, time in your industry is critical, and I don't take that lightly. So thank you for looking at our solution. Let's take a look at, query performance is one thing. Let's look at the administration part of the equation. And Derek mentioned a little bit, and again, we're going to hear from Manuel a little bit. What are you seeing from an administration perspective?
So we had about a quarter FTE doing performance tuning. We've been able to reduce that to about 10% of one person doing that work. We also used to create materialized views, as you see, that took about 300 hours to create them and a ton of storage. That's no longer needed. So we don't have to do that activity anymore. And what I'm excited about is we used to spend quite a bit of time indexing. We don't have to do that anymore. But I always write TBD because I'm the proof in the pudding girl. So in 2 years, you can ask me again and see if I think the performance is the same. I'm hoping from your last presentation, they seem to think it's getting better and better. So I'm looking forward to continuing to see those results.
Fantastic. I don't think you'll be unhappy based on what I've seen with other customers as well. So it's a journey, totally get that. So let's wrap up with kind of going back to your objectives from a few slides ago. What sort of outcomes that you see that this platform and investment in Oracle and our partnership, our business partnership is getting you?
Yeah, so I would say just to make it clear that this sets the foundation for many of these things, right? So single source of truth, we'll be able to add more data, and we're already doing that in our projects as we more and more. We still have more than one source of truth, of course. That's a journey. You will always have more data. As you've seen, we've already seen faster environment. We want to make sure we're on a long-term that we're stable, and we've been able to do that. We set the stage for us to do advanced analytics. In particular, right now, where we've been doing is forecasting volumes of COVID cases. If you can imagine, that's really important to an organization such as mine. So we've been working through there. We're doing Golden Gate as we speak now, so that we can have more concurrent and data analysis and move to have faster data acquisition. I'm happy, and we've had approved data strategy, which is super important. And we've been doing all of this auditing to improve the data quality from sometimes in our old platform up to 10% variance, can you believe that, to an SLA of 6 Sigma. So we really want to improve our digestion quality as well.
Yeah, one thing we missed, and then we'll wrap here, is one of your objectives, I believe, was acquisition. So you had mentioned previously about the speed of acquiring companies.
There are companies too, but hospitals, right, and medical groups. So if you can imagine, right, if we purchase a hospital, we need to understand their operational and clinical space. So we need to be able to acquire data just like any other organization very quickly so we can manage them. So for us to be able to do that quickly really helps our organization and ensure that we can service the community as we'd like to.
Yeah, I think you had said that previous to moving to this platform took a long time to acquire those data assets, and now give us an idea.
It not only did it take a while, but we had to with our vendor partner, they had to move on to our platform. So we're Cerner. So if, for example, they were Meditech, we had to move them from Meditech to Cerner. Now, an EMR transition, electronic medical record, can take 1 to 2, sometimes 3 years. And that most famous one can take 4 years sometimes. So that's a long time not to have the data that you need. So here we can take the data we want, move it in the data warehouse, and maybe do parallels, bring them side to side, because we may never decide to bring them into our EMR. I told you, rural hospitals, it might not be worth the money to do so. It may be appropriate, or maybe they're in a different part of the state and they wouldn't have cross-population of patients. So you need to do it purposefully, not just because. And to do so, this gives us flexibility to make those decisions.
Perfect. Yeah, I imagine, and we talk about this off camera, that the reason you acquire some of these is to move them from the red to the black, and you need to do that as quickly as possible. So that's really the outcome of faster acquisition. Kim, thanks a lot for your time. Thank you for the partnership, and we're looking forward to some great things and improved healthcare in those rural areas.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kim. Okay. Again, thanks for that. Next up is Manuel Martin Marquez, who's a senior project leader at CERN. Manuel, bienvenidos, welcome.
Thank you very much, Scott.
He's all the way from Europe, and I had to say that.
No, I have to thank you as well, because, it's nowadays, maybe this is the only way out. We have to meet such a number of people. And especially from the CERN perspective as well, we need to communicate what we do, and reach new audience is something that we really appreciate. So thank you very much for this. So absolutely. Yeah, coming back to your question about what,
tell us a little bit about CERN and what's going on there.
Okay, thanks. So CERN is an international organization. CERN is the European Laboratory for Particle Physics. So the international organization is funded by mostly by the European member states. So, but the collaboration is much wider. Today we have institute for more than 110 different nationalities, which is kind of the same number of the United Nations countries, yeah, that work together to achieve the same goal. So, and the goal is very simple, which is do fundamental research, which link with our mandates. Our mandate is very simple, which is try to understand how the universe works and what it's made of. Simple to say, hard to achieve, yeah? So what we're trying to do is to do fundamental research to try to understand, which is the main building blocks that make everything, yeah? Which make yourself, myself, the connection that we are using today, and the largest structures of the universe, of course, planets, stars, galaxy, clusters, and something even more fancy could be matter, antimatter, black energy, black matter, all this kind of fancy stuff that we need to understand what are they made of. In order to understand the smallest things in the universe, we have to build some of the biggest scientific instruments the human being have ever built, and most probably the most complex one. Yes, the Large Hadron Collider, which is our flagship experiment, is 27 kilometers ring, which in mile, I think is 16.7 miles, and it's built 100 meters underground, which is 300 feet, more or less, underground. Yeah, I mean, this is really complex machine where we accelerate particles to almost speed of light, and then we make them collide in some special point where we take some pictures out of this collision. Please understand that this is a simplification, and we try to understand what I said before, what trying to achieve our mandate. So,
the largest instrument investigating the smallest things in our universe, really, and I imagine lots of data too. So. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your requirements, and it's all about scale, I would imagine.
Yeah, sure thing. So, I mean, there is a few things that is important to say here. Yeah, I mean, one of let's say that our main mandate, I mean, from my team I work with and myself, is to make all the data that we are collecting from the experiments, all the data that, is somehow important to understand all these mysteries of the universe, and all the data that's well come out from operations, and because this is quite challenging things. We have to collect all this data. We have to make sure that the data is collected properly. We need to make sure that the data is stored and persisted, sometimes forever. This is something that is important to say. What we do at CERN is quite unique. So I like to say that the data that we are collecting sometimes is human heritage, because there is no second chance to get this data. And somehow we never know if we'll have to come back to the data that we are collecting today. Most probably we will, as our understanding of the universe change, and we have to rewrite the history of physics, for instance, yeah? So, but yeah, I mean, you asked me about data volumes. So yeah, I mean, when we are in operations, we are collecting more than 1 petabyte per second. So 1 petabyte, 2 petabyte, 3 petabyte, and so on and so forth, which is, this is the physics data. This is the data that is interesting for scientists. This is data that got the Nobel Prize in 2012 later on with the Higgs boson discovery and all this kind of stuff. So, however, there is something that is important to say here, which is, so even if you may think that, this guy from CERN, 1 petabyte per second, this is far away from what I'm doing in my daily base operations. It's a small company or biggest one, yeah. I mean, because I don't think that many organizations have the chance to run these large experiments or deal with such an amount of data, yeah. So, but actually you have to understand that the background of the problem that you're dealing with is the same. It's exactly the same. I mean, any of us have been doing an investment on collecting data. I mean, now more than ever, because the amount of data that we are collecting is increasing and increasing, as well the complexity and so on and so forth. So, and we need to get profit out of this data. It doesn't matter. I mean, for us, it's understanding about the universe. For you could be, as Andy Mendes, and they said by Vodafone that they wanted to understand the behavior of some customers or whatever. But actually, it's profit that you wanted to get from the data. So, yeah, I mean, based on that, I think I wanted to get the things out to the reality, to concrete in a concrete project that we are doing that I think is quite challenging and quite interesting, and I've been doing for the last few months with part of my team. So, they did see this large machine is composed of a large number of different sensors throwing millions of different signals, and that's makes one of the biggest IoT systems in the world that I know. So all this data is really essential for us. A small problem in this data, a small problem happening in the system can take to large or to some critical things for us. I mean, if we have to stop our operations because we have to pull down the accelerator or warm up the accelerator, it will take months to recover. So knowing what we are doing with this data is essentially critical. So this IoT system, as I said, million of different signals or whatever, today is more than 1.1 petabyte of time series data, and it's stored in an Oracle database, on-premises one. So what we wanted to do is to say, hey guys, I mean, as we are speaking, this data is increasing, the complexity of our system are increasing as well. So we need to do something to understand better our operations, to answer those questions that engineering teams and people, an expert, are asking us every day, because they wanted to understand how we have to say that even if the biggest machine, the LHC, this big machine, is something that is our flagship experiment, we have to understand this is still a prototype. We are running a prototype of 27 kilometers in production. Yeah, and that's bring a lot of challenges for us. One of these is that, the data is increasing and we need to understand better what is going on to reply to the demand of the people just asking new questions that were not there before. Yeah.
So the data is increasing, but I don't think your budget was increasing. And I wanted to go back to one thing you said earlier about the cost of downtime. I want to make sure I heard that right. If there's any sort of disruption, it's months to recover?
Yeah, I mean, we have the experience in the past when we had a little problem in one of our systems, just take us 2 months to recover. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the biggest issues that we have in the past. But I don't want it to focus on that sense. For us, this data is critical. We wanted to do more with the same budget that we have, even with less, because, the situation with science is getting flat. So we need to do something as well, and this is very important to say, to answer those questions that we were not able to give tools to be replied before. So, we are moving from on-premises services to something better that can help us to increase, to cope with the demand of data, but as well to have all these add-on things, analytics, machine learning, and all these kind of things that you can put on top of this, yeah? Mm-hmm. So, but we have some requirements that you asked me. This is why I went through this long introduction. So first one is what we wanted to keep the very simple architecture that we had before. Before we have an on-premise database, so we didn't want to reinvent the wheel and go for something really complex because we don't have two resources to do that. What we wanted to test is whether we can do the same with us, the same simplicity of architecture. We wanted to do the same. We wanted to improve, do better without disrupting the things. So this is where all this autonomous data warehouse or the autonomous Oracle technologies came in. That's compatibility. What we were doing before is something the same thing that we can do. It was pointed out by Andy. So in our case, if we manage to move from the on-premises service to EDW, we can improve, but our clients or real-time application and so on and so forth that query that data, we just need to, in the worst case, change the connection string. So that somehow minimize the migration and integration efforts. So, but there is something that is important to say here. We wanted to, because this was the main driven of moving to ADW, main requirement to move to ADW, which was unlock data exploration. Previously with the current system or the system that we had, it was pretty easy to get data. You write a SQL query and then you get back some data. As far as the data set that you are trying to find is reasonable, as far as the time window that you are trying to achieve is fine. So in short, if you know what you're looking for, that's a perfect system. But if you wanted to explore the data, to find out what is going on, to understand better those prototypes, to get some values out of your data that you put there, extra value, you need to offer this kind of flexible tool that allow your users, in our case, our engineers team, to do exploration, to try to find these unknowns, and then someday have the data, they can just play with it to get some value doing machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all these kind of new techniques that they are really willing to do, but they need the perfect environment to that, yeah? And then we found ADW. So of course, I can talk about other requirements like lowers operations and development costs, but this is nothing new if you know a little bit ADW or autonomous technologies of Oracle.
So we have more data, don't have as many, the number of people to support that is not growing. More data, we want to provide all that capability to your users and also keeping a control on costs. So let's figure out what was the architecture that you landed on for the cloud?
I mean, we have to admit it. So the first thing that we think is that, a part of Be Simple, a part of all the things that I already mentioned, so we need to be, cost effective. So we need to maintain the cost. That was really critical in our requirements from the beginning. So in that sense, we think like, the first thing is that we need to use these protocol autonomous technologies, but we need to be really smart. So in that sense, we have 1.1 petabyte of time series data that we need to move to the cloud and use CDW to query the data. Why don't we want it to, or why don't we just be a little bit smarter? And then instead of putting this data into the Exadata, using object store, or do the storage to that. So, and that was pretty new approach, that all this flexibility, all these new technologies, or how it was called during this event, modern data warehouse, allows you, is to have all this flexibility, as new things, and then fit with the one that works for you. So what we did is take all this data coming from the control system, use Kafka. This is another thing, it's an open source technology that integrates really well with your infrastructures. Yeah. So use Kafka as a buffer, collect the data is staying in Kafka, we do some transformations, so we massage the data to create Parquet files that later on we deliver to the object storage, and then we use CDW as a querying engine to this. So with that, what we got is a very, 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 how to say, simple system. Actually, we don't have to deal with all the, all the complexity of having data into database or whatever, even if the autonomous is doing all the tricks for you. So this is very cost effective because we got the same performance that we were getting before, or I would say even better. And there's a nice story that I can tell you later if we have the time to see how we improve the performance using this setup, yeah? But actually the cost of having the data in the object storage instead of Exadata, it was a fraction of the cost, yeah? Because you are paying just for storage, which is, object storage is really relatively cheap in terms of cost, yeah? And then the performance that we were getting to access to these Parquet files as an external tables was more than enough than what we need. So, but then, the system that you are providing, guys, it's pretty flexible. We wanted to do something better. So we were just collaborating with your development team in the meantime, the idea was evolving because we've been working with you for quite a long time. And then we came out with this idea of saying, why don't we use these hybrid partition tables? So we know that 90% of the access that we have is to hot data that have been produced over the last few days. Why don't we move this data to Exadata, and the rest of the data is kept in the object storage? With that, what we got is a kind of very nice transparency layer that allows you to query the data in SQL, and then the data is being collected from the place it is, transparently to the user, and then the performance was relatively very, very good for us.
So thank you for that. So this solution, very simplified, which is one of your objectives, cost effective, but I think the third leg of that stool is your performance was actually better than you thought it was going to be with this implementation. So I think you've achieved kind of the objectives there. Would you agree?
Yeah, sure thing. And I think I forgot to mention about this Oracle Analytics Cloud that we put on top. Do you remember data exploration that I told you before? So that was key as well to allow data exploration too, because even if you think that CERN is plenty of smart people, that sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, it's as any other place, we need to offer tools to do the things in a very simple manner. Because even if I'm the most knowledgeable data scientist, sometimes I just need to explore my data. So we need a tool that allows you to explore the data in a simple manner, but as well to scale in complexity and in volume as well. And Oracle Analytics Cloud was kind of a good fit for that.
Fantastic. Well, again, I feel like this is once again more of a partnership, and you're taking advantage of some of the services in the manner you see fit. So let's actually go to that, the next part here, which is, what did you see as gains implementing this solution for you?
Yeah, I would like to say that, stress on the point that you mentioned before, which is partnership. And this is very important for us before getting into this, because, I don't see, this is my personal opinion, I guess the opinion for everyone working at CERN with you guys, is that we are not customers, we are partners. So we've been working together for many years, so I have to thank you, because this project is actually the result of this partnership. I mean, you get some hints. I mean, we are working very closely to the development teams to make that work. And I think that was part of the success as well. Yeah. So if we talk about our gains, so it was summarized, it was already mentioned. So we got a very simple architecture. It was compatible with what we had before. So all these real-time applications that we have hundreds of applications accessing to this data, they don't have to change. I mean, because they are legacy applications, and maybe maintaining this application is a nightmare, but they just change the connection string in the worst case, yeah? And then they are working. I mean, the move from there is transparent in majority of the cases. It's very cost effective. So, you know, but for the cost of 1.1 petabyte it's much less because we compress the data in Parquet as well. But let's say for the cost of 1 petabyte in only storage, which is almost negligible, we have a very good and performance system, yeah? So we got automatic access to advanced optimizations, you know. So we don't want to optimize the system. What we want is to profit from the system to do whatever we want it to do, which is analyze the thing. So, and then, you know, when you have this Exadata and all this performance tuning that is done automatically by you, for you, this is perfectly fine. I mean, that's perfect scenarios for us, yeah? So transparent backup batching, so we don't care about this. So the data is in object storage. These 3 copies of the data is done. So another important point is to scale up and down. You know, sometimes we have peaks in demand. So you have this auto scale up, which even sometimes we saw that the peak would happen afterwards and everything was fine. So we don't have to worry anymore about this, which I think is pretty good. So as I mentioned already, the benefit of Exadata is in the background. So this is a very safe point from our perspective. So something that I wanted to focus or to say here is that I think it was mentioned before, you know, no DBAs. You know, the team in this project, you know, I'm many things, you know, even I'm father of 2 years old girl, which is sometimes challenging, yeah, and I've been doing many, many different things in my work. Sure. But, you know, I'm not a DBA. So, and I didn't have the need to be a DBA to do this huge project, you know, and this was a very important asset. And that takes me to the other point, because, you know, what we saw already is that, you know, people doing boring DBA stuff, because, you know, some people get bored about doing the same thing and again, you know, performance tuning, you dealing with users and all these kind of things. You don't need to do that anymore. I mean, you can just swap the work of these people to get the most out of the data that you have. What we saw is that there is already a swap of people doing DBA stuff to start analyzing the data, which at the end of the day is what we need to do, yeah?
Yeah, let's not worry about the infrastructure. We'll take care of that. It's part of our partnership. Let's wrap up on this topic. And if you could spend a couple minutes on what this platform allows you to do with predictive analytics. We haven't really touched upon that yet, but can you discuss, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, Manuel, but what does the platform allow you to do with predictive? Because we talked about downtime, that's kind of a problem. Are there things we could do out of that platform to provide that?
This is a good question because, you know, as I said, that was one of the main motivation to change the system that we have for that system, is to allow the people to do analysis on this. So, you know, we're running a prototype in production, and therefore we need to understand what is going on in order to scale our operations, or even to stop our operations,
right?
Or even to drive decision toward the futures of the organization. So, and that understanding came out with this machine learning, artificial intelligence thing that we can do. But as well, we can be more, how to say, optimal on how we are dealing with our infrastructures. Yeah. So, and this is where predictive analytics comes from. I mean, you know, we have different projects where we are using predictive analytics based on the system that we've been discussing on this presentation or this talk, that somehow are capable to predict whether certain devices are about to fail. Mm-hmm. So we have a schedule of interventions, and then we can go back to the tunnel. We can go down to the tunnel and then replace these devices before they fail. Because if they fail later on, while we are in operations, in the best case, we'll have to send someone, stop operation, and then send someone to fix. Will be a downtime in our operations. So if we use predictive analytics, which is already the case, can avoid this kind of thing, this is a very, very important game for us.
Yeah, staying with the theme of being cost effective. If you know when and where to deploy somebody, fix it, you can get on with it, because downtime can be very expensive.
Yeah, sure thing.
Manuel, muchas gracias. Thank you for joining with us. Thank you for your partnership. We're looking for more interesting discoveries of the universe from CERN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Scott. It was my pleasure.
Absolutely. Okay, I believe now, if I'm not mistaken, we have a poll. Yes. So if you would, please take a little bit of time to answer the following polling question. Let's pull that up. So you've heard some use cases. Which of these use cases most resonates with your requirements? We talked about departmental data warehouses, departmental data warehouses with enterprise application data, data lakes, and so on. If you would take a moment to click one of the radio buttons, and we'll see the results here in a minute. All right, we got some votes. Let's see what we got. Departmental data warehouse using enterprise application data. Oh, that was quick. So that's what I saw. Not uncommon. And of course, we're happy to work with you, partner with you on setting that up, which actually leads me to, let's spotlight on you. How do we help you get started and what those next steps might be? So let's go to the next slide. The next step really is, instead of leaving everything to let's try to figure out which services are appropriate for my environment, we've come up with a few things to help you deploy quickly and with confidence. And we've developed architectural patterns, which is why the question before was so key, based on those use cases. The second thing we've done is we've taken those patterns and we're starting to make those available as automated deployments within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, the console itself. We're going to walk through these, by the way. And then last, I'm sure there's folks in our audience who are saying, that's all great, but I just want to learn and experiment. We have something brand new called Oracle Live Labs. So I'm going to give you a quick tour of each of these. Let's go to the next one. So the data warehouse architecture patterns follow the polling questions, actually, which was nice. It was very not coincidental, uncoincidental. So departmental data warehouse, enterprise data warehouse, these are all patterns. And I'll walk you through the website, and I'll give you the link at the in a little bit here, that have architectural diagrams, descriptions, white papers, technical papers, I should say, and Terraform scripts where you actually go through and choose, and you can, if you're a little more technical, apply the Terraform script. So let's actually go to the next, and it's a video just so we don't have any errors here. Here are the different use cases. There are pictures. Let's go down to the departmental mart for eBusiness Suite. Similar to what Andy showed earlier, here's the use case pattern for that. This is an example of an enterprise application and departmental spreadsheets, collecting that into the data warehouse with Analytics Cloud. Then, of course, you want to say, okay, let's take a look at that. Let's go into more information. Here in our architecture center, and there's a ton of these in here, by the way, I'm just selecting one, not totally at random. If you scroll down here, here's the architecture again. Here's the description of each of the services in the different categories. Here's some recommendations on services we think are appropriate here, some consideration. And what's most interesting is we've put together a deployment for this. We've scripted this into a Terraform script, and it's actually housed in GitHub. Here's the link. Here's the architecture. Here are all the components. Not trying to hide anything. There's no magic here. We've put these together for you to really speed deployment, prerequisites, and so on in order to deploy. If you don't like it, we can destroy it. And again, back to the reference architecture. Oh, there's a misspelling there. All right, so let's go on to the next. So those are your architecture use cases. Let's also look at the OCI console. So we've taken those patterns, we packaged them in, and we're starting to automate them in the console itself. So if you're in the console, there's a kind of in the upper quick actions there. Oh, let's go back. There we go. I think this should be playing. That's okay. There we go. It is alive. This is recorded, but this is live. So there's a button there that says create a stack, and we select this button. What you will then see is a list of solutions. And in here, I'm kind of cheating. There's the departmental data warehouse, similar to what we saw in the pattern. And in this automated deployment will deploy Autonomous Data Warehouse and Oracle Analytics Cloud. It's as simple as selecting that. There are elements in here that you can change. So let's take a look at that. Let's just deploy the sample solution. We're going to click next. There's some parameters we can change in here to our heart's content, whether it's, I want to change the name, a few parameters there. The whole point is automating this process. We'll take care of that for you. And it's pretty quick. Imagine if you had to do this yourself. You absolutely could. Again, trying to improve time to market of these solutions. You can apply all the changes and move on. Let's actually go to the next slide. This is just a screen of actually deploying, and it goes pretty quickly. The third piece is I get automated deployment, I get use cases, I just want to get my hands on. What's new is something called Oracle Live Labs. It's a series of workshops. You reserve the date and time, you run the workshop in the Oracle Cloud, and I'll show you a little bit about that. And then hopefully through the workshop, you learn the skill. So let's take a look at this. So this is the website. Again, you get the URL here in a minute. A variety of featured workshops. Let's go ahead and take a look at all the available workshops. If I click there, I think it goes in a minute. There it goes. I just described that. Go back to viewing all those featured workshops, yes. So let's take a look. So, and this will continue to grow. So this is what we have today, autonomous database in depth, so on. I can actually filter. So let's take, hey, I want to actually learn a little, I want to be more productive. What do we have in the area of AI and ML? Oh, machine learning and autonomous database. We heard about that a little bit earlier. So what does that workshop entail? Here's the about screen. There's some prerequisites. There's the outline. And then there are ways to run this workshop. You can run it on our free trial, the always free environment. And also we allow you to run in your tenancy as well using your credits. So you actually get to own the resulting infrastructure. So these are just some of the ways in this course we can reserve the workshop. Pretty simple here. Let's go to the next slide. All of these are available through our new link here, oracle.com/modern-data-warehouse. Seems like a mouthful. Hopefully it's memorable. So if we go to this site, should be live today, you'll be able to access the things I just mentioned. Obviously, you're going to have to go to the OCI console to access that. But the architecture patterns and live labs you'll be able to access here and much, much more. But we didn't stop there. Next slide. We're going to have more events. There was a lot to cover here. So if we look at our roadmap, our calendar out here, if you go to oracle.com/transform-data, all one word, there's a variety of events, virtual events. This is the kind of the, I don't want to call it the new normal, but this is really easy to consume on getting started, the changing role of the DBA. And I like to point out our partnership with Accenture on August 27th. We're partnering with partners. As a business partner to our customers, we're partnering with our partners to deliver these solutions in a timely manner as well. With that, Steve, I'll turn it back to you.
Great, thank you. And first, a big thank you to all of our customers for sharing their stories. And as Andy showed, we have a complete integrated solution that has all the elements you need already working together. And it's easy to get started. It's easy to secure and operate, and it's easy to analyze. And of course, with autonomous operations, you're going to spend a lot less time operating your modern data warehouses and much more time discovering the valuable insights from that data that can help impact your business, your customers, or whoever you might serve. And I think we heard great examples from the customers there. And again, I'd encourage you to look at the labs and the other resources that were covered. They're there to support you, and we're here to help as you move forward in your journey. So, we do hope you will attend our next virtual summit. The focus will be on the efficiency and transformation that can be achieved through database consolidation. So we're really excited about that. Have a great lineup set for that. And again, we hope that you will join us. With that, again, I would like to thank everybody for attending this event and hopefully joining us for future events. And once again, thanks to our customers for joining us. Thank you, Andy. It was a very knowledgeable, couple hours together. So really appreciate it. Thank you.